welcome back to Block TV, where it's time for Power Blocks. That's a point in time where we sit down with some of the major power players in the blockchain and digital asset industry to discuss recent developments in their projects and hear their takes on the latest news and trends of the market. And to do this, I am joined in studio by crypto regulation analyst, vice president of Bittax, and a wonderful human being, Lokay Cohen. Hello.
Hello.
And we are on today with Bill Barhydt. He's the CEO and founder of Abra, the world's first global investment app. And before we begin, let's talk some Abra news, Bill, because Abra is expanding its U.S. offerings, adding support for 60 new cryptocurrencies, doubling users' bank deposit limits, which has all been announced in the last 24 hours. Tell us, girls, all about it.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic day. We've been working really hard to improve the breadth and depth of the Abra offering. The number one request that we keep getting from users all over the world is the ability to invest in more cryptocurrencies, the ability to have more stablecoin support, to be able to make deposits via different coins, DAI, Tether, Paxos, TrueUSD, et cetera, et cetera. So we announced yesterday support for all of those for both deposits, withdrawals, and trading. It's rolled out as of yesterday in the US, and then over the next several weeks, it'll be rolled out globally. And as a matter of fact, globally, we're rolling out more than 60 cryptocurrencies. I think the number will be closer to 200, actually.
Wow. Well, in the US, just wondering with you, regulation-wise, how did you swing this?
Yeah, so we partner with myriad cryptocurrency exchanges that manage custody on the back end for our wallets. And so we work with them very closely to make sure that they have really analyzed what they're doing, that they have the requisite money transmission and or MSB licensing to be able to do what they're doing, particularly in the US. So for example, unfortunately, we can't provide this service in the state of New York because this is one of the service providers we use doesn't have the BIT license yet. So hopefully when they have that BIT license, we'll be able to turn this on there. But by and large, the partners we use have done a really good job of putting the appropriate licensing in place to be able to allow us to offer these services to our users globally.
To the users globally. Or is that the way to go about it?
Well, apparently, yeah. The BIT license, you're right about that. I'm all for regulation, but you know, when BIT license is the one case when regulation is a little bit tougher than what you need and making everybody run away instead of, you know, coming in. But to have good partners is great, and probably it's the way to do it right now when it's really hard to face regulation. But I'm wondering, so I understand the security part of it, but and maybe what about the AML part, and what about mainly the SEC part, whereas you are going to, I understand the difference between 60 to 200 in Europe because it's easier wise, regulation wise, but how did you get approval for the 60?
Yeah, so as I said, first of all, we ourselves are not a regulated exchange. We only integrate with regulated exchanges on the back end. So whenever you're trading with Abra, you're actually using other exchanges that we route orders to. We don't run our own order book. Mm-hmm. So effectively, all of the cryptocurrencies that we support have already been approved by other exchanges for availability in the US. And that's why, for example, there are 60 that are being launched as opposed to 200. And the big issue there is just getting through the regulatory hurdles to make sure that what you're listing, for example, isn't a security.
Isn't a security. Now, I'm wondering with you, Bill, has this been made possible by the void that Binance has left behind?
We're not really catering to the high-end trader, right? I mean, if you look at like what Binance and Kraken and Bittrex have done, they've put in place really powerful high-end trading tools with APIs as well for building your own apps using their system. Abra is really catering to the everyday retail consumer investor who wants exposure to very specific cryptocurrencies. And they're not really very sophisticated in their trading. So we developed a very simple wallet app that moves and completely removes the complexity of buying, selling, and moving between cryptocurrencies out of the app, and just gives you a very simple experience. The best analogy I can give you is it's like walking up to TravelX at the airport when you have your leftover euros from your trip to Europe. You simply give them euros and they give you dollars back. And what happens in the middle, you have no idea. And Abra is really doing the same thing, but with cryptocurrencies.
You know, sounds like a winning combination. Wondering with you also, one of the unique features of Bitcoin, and at the end of the day, that's what sparked, you know, everything, is that it's private money. It doesn't depend on a third party. It's very difficult to confiscate. What will you say to people that claim that the idea of a central organization holding Bitcoin or other cryptos, you know, is actually completely against the whole Bitcoin ideology?
I think in terms of actually using Bitcoin as a currency, I would agree. The Bitcoin in the Abra wallet today is non-custodial. The altcoins that we support are actually custody. Our take is that if you're actually using Bitcoin as your own digital money and not just for investment purposes, you should have a wallet that stores those keys offline. Right. My personal Bitcoin, the amount that I use for my everyday use is not online. It's not available for other people to hack. And we think the mantra of your keys, your money makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're actively trading or exchanging assets, it's a slightly different story. It's very difficult to effectively exchange between assets atomically or in any way for that matter if you're holding your keys offline. So I would make a distinction between people who are actively trading or actively exchanging assets and people who are actually using the Bitcoin as some form of money or even digital gold. Those people are probably better off keeping the Bitcoin or whatever currency they're holding offline and then bringing it online into their Abra app when they actually want to trade. That's what I do. So I keep my Bitcoin offline and then bring it online when I'm ready to trade.
I think that's a
or send money to someone.
No, entirely. I'm wondering with you, or do you see a future where Bitcoin actually is not regulated, but cryptos are?
Well, not really, not really. And it's interesting what you're saying.
Going the other direction.
It's very interesting what you are saying, because basically what I believe that mass adoption has to go through easy wallet to use, because it's very hard to use for somebody that doesn't understand crypto. Yeah. And so the wallet are the answer to that. And what you're saying basically is that in order to hold Bitcoin and not to use them, you think it's better for them to take a Trezor or Ledger or cold storage of some kind. And this is very, very not going to help to adoption. You know, it's very hard to use those.
I agree 100%. The vast majority of Abra users don't do what you just said. Right. They literally keep the Bitcoin in the Abra wallet because they don't understand the difference between personal private key management and managed custody. And as much as we explain it, and if you go to the Abra website, look at our blogs, look at our educational content, we spend an unbelievable amount of time and money developing content for this, and still the average user prefers to simply let Abra do it for them, as opposed to taking the responsibility for themselves, because it's simply much easier to do it the way that the app enables by default.
Bill, because you're in this sphere, and what you described just now could actually be, I mean, let me be a little bit, not pessimistic, but maybe that's what people need. They need that third party. Maybe the whole idea is that, you know, because at the end of the day, we keep thinking the second it's easy, the second it's, you know, it's a one-stop shop, then there you go, but maybe it's impossible without that entity that is almost like a bank.
Yeah, I think there's, look, there's agency over your personal money and wealth, and then there's the value add of a third-party service. I think in the case of Abra, we're trying to basically give people the tools to have both. You can have agency over your money if you choose to really maintain that agency and manage it yourself, and you can bring the money online when you're ready to use it or trade it or send it to someone else. And we think over time, people will, especially the people who are new into the banking system, who see that Bitcoin makes a lot of sense the way it's set up. Older people, I think, you know, maybe it's just easier to trust the banking system, and I've never really been screwed by the banking system, and maybe I don't really get how the banking system is screwing me anyway. And so I'm fine to leave my money how it is in the third-party managed world. But I think young people coming up will understand over time the difference between kind of self-sovereign agency over your own wealth and third parties doing that for you.
You know, it's interesting because we had a chance, Withor and I, to speak to the CEO of Lokay Cohen, who basically quantified the mass adoption of Bitcoin somewhere between 3 to 30 years. And I think from what you described right now, that it needs a generational shift, and it's most likely 30 years.
Yeah, that's right, unfortunately. I mean, look, the internet itself consumer internet is 30 years old. I was there in the Netscape days. It doesn't feel like it was 25 years ago, but it was.
But it is,
and
exactly.
The time has flown by.
Entirely. Now, something else that you mentioned that's interesting is that, you are not, Abra does not cater to high-end traders, as you mentioned. It's more for the masses, which is phenomenal because that means, it's getting out there, or the idea of how to use it, it's getting out to more people. How much new money has entered, or would you say that there's new money entering this year that we haven't seen before?
Oh, absolutely, every day. I mean, the most common way for people to deposit into Abra is via their bank accounts. So people in Europe make SEPA deposits, in the US, ACH and bank wires. We have people coming in via credit card. So it's literally every single day new money in the system. We also have a lot of people who deposit their Bitcoin or their Ether or their Litecoin or XRP into Abra, but by and large, most of the money coming in is either via bank accounts, or in Asia, we have a lot of consumers who will deposit via cash by walking into one of our retail teller partners and handing them cash, and they get Bitcoin deposited into their Abra app in return.
Right. Now, stablecoins have become a hot trend in the past 2 years. Do you think they have an advantage, let's say, over the dollar?
Well, they have an advantage for trading sites that don't provide bank rails, right? I mean, that was really the key to Binance's success, was that they were very effective at creating trading pairs that took advantage of Tether and other other stable coins that would give people dollar exposure without themselves having to have bank integration. So that was a big deal. Over time, we'll see whether stablecoins actually provide value beyond just crypto trading. Libra was meant to basically show that stablecoins could provide value in person-to-person money transfers. At Abra, we've looked at using collateralized stablecoins a la DAI for other applications. And as those become truly decentralized and don't actually store dollars in a bank account, right, I think their utility will go even higher because you won't have to rely on the banking system at all to manage the stablecoins. And that's kind of the holy grail of all of this. And that's why I think the DAI project from Maker in particular is really interesting, because they showed us that you could actually create a stablecoin that in theory doesn't have any trusted third party in the middle.
Right. Or
now I want to ask you, now we all know better than to keep the money, to keep the crypto in the exchange accounts, all the hacking, and we all know that. Now what you're saying is basically take responsibility, people, and put your money, if you have a lot of cryptos, so put it in a safe place, which is in a cold storage, and take responsibility of that. So how many crypto, into like a dollar amount, how much money would you recommend to keep in Abra app?
I would say anything, if you're holding more than $25,000, I would say definitely put it in hardware storage and move it when you need it. If you're actively trading in volumes of less than that, the hackers are not focused on you. The hackers are focused on the large whales where they can go fishing with a big net.
Right.
And so, it's really a risk reward game even for the hackers, right? The hackers tend to, unfortunately, watch shows like this, see names like mine, and say, "Oh, Bill must have a lot of crypto, so let's try to hack him." And the barbarians are at my gates all day long. And so I've done a very good job, I think, of basically building a moat around my life so that even if I was to give you all my personal information, you still wouldn't be able to get my crypto. But for most people, they're not in the public eye. They're not easily out there or readily out there the way myself and other people in the crypto community are. So I think with reasonably smaller amounts of money in thousands of dollars, they're okay online for the most part.
No, I tend to agree. I don't think I'm ever going to be hacked. But that said, I want to talk to you about a little bit about the news, the main news in the sphere, so to speak. Because at the end of the day, you're one of the wheelers and dealers of it. Libra, much in discussion, going through terrible hurdles. Never mind what Congress thinks of it or what it thinks of Facebook. What do you think? Well, first of all, do you think Libra will happen? And what can it do to the sphere when and if it does?
Yeah, I think Libra will happen in some form. I think it's going to take quite a while to reach this kind of state that they really believe that its endgame looks like, which means that anybody in the world using WhatsApp or Instagram can send money to anybody else instantly. I think that's a 10-year proposition. Between building the on-ramps and off-ramps in all of those countries, getting regulatory approval, getting the technology right, et cetera, it's a 5 to 10 year proposition to get it right. I think that it's been fantastic for the broader cryptocurrency space because it's created so much awareness for the power of this technology that it's been a big boon for companies like Abra and other peers of mine in the space. So that's good. But I do think that it will happen. I think they're willing to throw a ton of money at this problem. I think the opportunity for messaging apps in the Facebook realm to own P2P the way WeChat does in China is enormous, and they get it. And I don't think they really have a choice but to try to see this through.
Brilliant that you said that, because Facebook came out in the last 24 hours, I think, or 48 hours, announcing Facebook Pay, which to me sounded like a beta for Libra in a way, although they say it's not. And then Google now wants to get into, finances with this latest, well, I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal today.
I did, yeah.
You did. Okay, what do you make of that?
Look, I think every tech company is going to get into banking. I think that the banking stack is going to be crunched in a way where Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, they're all going to have core banking services, whether it's checking, DDAs, deposit accounts, or credit cards like we saw with Apple Pay. It all makes perfect sense. I think the question is going to be, is there a level playing field for competition? Are they usurping their positions as the owners of the user interface and user experience to create monopolies? If that's not the case and there's an even playing field, I'm all for it, right? It's just like I say with altcoins. The more tech we have, the better the tech's going to become. And the best way to improve Bitcoin is to let somebody else do it first. Well, in some cases, the way to improve the tech here is to let other companies do it first. Maybe Wells Fargo will get their act together and actually be an innovator in 15 years because Apple and Microsoft and Facebook and Google are doing it for them. And so competition is great. It's just make it a level playing field so everyone can compete.
Well, for that, or to make it a level playing field, we need regulation, don't we?
We do, we do, and it's interesting because Libra the Congress was furious about Libra.
I think they were more furious about Mark Zuckerberg, but yeah.
And it's very interesting because it seems like right now Congress are not against crypto, they are just against Facebook. And right now what we are watching is that fiat money payments are going to replace the function that Libra wanted to do for exactly the same purpose. So is Facebook with fiat money, it's okay, or are you still preferring cryptocurrency? Because you have a lot of advantages in cryptocurrency, but you just need to know them.
Entirely. No, I mean, a very valid point. And Bill, I'm wondering with you, because to me, this just seems that, the way to comply, if you're this big tech company, is essentially just become the platform like Alipay or whatnot, for the old system. And then what have we done?
Yeah, I mean, look, David Marcus used to run PayPal. He could have easily built a competitor to PayPal in more or less the same way. I believe Facebook has money transmission or e-money licenses all over the world, which is what they're using for their interim Facebook Pay platform. They could have easily done that, but they chose to do what was hard because it actually solved some big problems in terms of how to do settlements, how to eliminate middlemen like banks and things like card transactions. So I think the promise of what they're trying to do is compelling, it's visionary, and it's very bold, given that they could have solved their own internal problems in probably a much easier, straightforward way that would have been probably even more compliance heavy, but had a very straightforward path to execution vis-a-vis PayPal and WePay and other companies.
Exactly. Now, speaking of just lastly, back again to regulation, the SEC, of course, something that we deal with a lot here, has explicitly stated it would not approve an ETF until it found a suitable custody solution. Do you think an ETF will happen before Libra?
Well, It depends whether or not you define Libra happening as being useful globally. I would say an ETF will happen before that. I'm surprised that an ETF isn't happening this year. I really believe that the SEC is a little bit misguided on this issue. I think that it becomes a little bit of a moving target if you see some of their comments that they've made with some of the recent rejections. It seems like they're consistent in some places, but they're actually moving the target a little bit with things like manipulation. And then now we're talking about custody, and who knows what the next topic will be. I am a little bit surprised that the ETF hasn't happened. Maybe it's going to happen when somebody like a Goldman decides to do it because they look and smell like a company that the SEC would want to back for that. I really don't know. I have no insights as to their thinking beyond what they've said publicly. But I don't think it's the end all and be all of the crypto space having an ETF approved. There are other ways for retail consumer investors to get exposure.
And one of no, entirely. And one of them is Abra, as we said. Such a big week, such a big week for you guys. As we mentioned at the beginning, I want to thank you so much for joining us from California today, both myself and Or. Thank you for being with us at BLOCKTV, and of course, hopefully we'll speak to you in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.